On this episode of Soldier Tech Battlefield, got a special guest in the house, and we're going to be talking about the Samsung Galaxy S4 and whether it's going to be good or bad. So let's go and start the show. What is up, you geeks? I'm your host, Mark Watson, otherwise known as Soldier Knows Best, and I got a special guest in the house today, Bowman. How you doing, man?
Cold. It's supposed to be spring.
Oh, yeah. I hear you, man. I hear you. Well, guys, this is Soldiers Tech Battlefield, and we're going to be talking about the latest in tech. And today we're going to be talking about the Samsung Galaxy S4 because it got announced about 2 weeks ago. There's been a lot of buzz about it, and me and Bowman were at the event out in New York City. So we're just going to talk about our thoughts about it and Samsung in general. So what do you think, Bowman? I mean, you were there at the event. You saw Samsung's kind of crazy little unveiling there. We had a lot of stuff going on, a lot of actors and stuff. What was your initial impressions of the event itself?
The event itself I thought was a great idea because the thing is people are still talking about it. Wasn't the point to be the best play, because I'd be really worried if Samsung actually tried to put on a real play. Besides that, the biggest thing that came out of it was that you got all the features and you got to see how the features were being used. Like, they actually told you what software features are giving you, and they actually showed you them in use. And I think that was the best thing that came out of it, and the best way to present it.
Yeah, it was kind of corny the way they did it, but I think they did a really good job, especially with the camera, which I think probably was sort of the most talked about thing out of this event because it does have this new feature where you can record both the front-facing and the rear-facing camera at the same time, which opens up a few possibilities. What are some other things about the camera you like?
Besides the 13 megapixels and that dual camera feature, I really do like that. When I saw that, I'm like, why didn't anyone else think of this? Some apps may be able to develop around using that dual camera mode to do some pretty interesting things. So I think that's pretty cool with the camera. It looks like the quality's pretty good with it as well too.
I think that probably the reason why somebody hasn't done this already is because they probably didn't have the processing power for it or the specs. But this Samsung Galaxy S4 looks to have some pretty impressive specs. The processor should be definitely able to handle almost everything you throw at it. And I know at the event itself, we were able to get hands-on after we fought through the crowd to get down there and actually touch the S4 and play around with it. Now, did you see any noticeable speed differences between the S4 and the S3?
Being a Galaxy S3 user myself, there's definitely noticeable difference between what the S3 has, which is the Snapdragon S4, to what the US variant is going to get, which is going to be the Snapdragon 600 on the Galaxy S4. You do notice it's a lot faster, a lot smoother, and the performance increases are better. Is it something that's hugely noticeable? I wouldn't say that right now, but it is noticeable enough if you've been using an S3 or you're coming from an S2.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be satisfied with it, but there's some rumblings, and some people weren't all too thrilled about what Samsung did with this S4. You know, my kind of belief is that because the S3 was such a popular phone last year, I mean, it really set the bar for Android phones. This S4 had a lot to live up to, and I believe that, Samsung nor Apple nor really any major company out there can kind of reinvent the phone every single year. So I think Samsung did more of an iPhone 4S or an iPhone, probably the iPhone 5S upgrade with this Samsung Galaxy S4. Do you agree with that, or?
I partially do. What I think with the Galaxy S4, I think it's a different enough phone not to give it that little S moniker like some people calling it the Galaxy S3S. I don't think it's quite that. I think you do see some key differences, especially with the 5-inch full 1080p display. You have now standard quad-core processing in the US version. You have 13 megapixel camera inside of it, and it's a bit of a different design. While the front pretty much looks the same as it did before, it's still, when you pick it up in hand and you compare it to the S3, there is a noticeable difference between the two. And also with all the extra software features with it, and, things with like the things they're doing with the S Drive voice. They're doing with sort of the S-Band with sort of the health features that they're doing as well too with it, and the S-Translate and a lot of S-related software with it. It seems to me that there's a lot in there that really warranted being a full version, being a Samsung Galaxy S4. I don't think it's just that sort of minor update that a lot of people are thinking that it is.
Oh yeah, I think they focus a lot on the software, but a lot of people, there's already people talking about before this S4 event about how Samsung may be trying to pull away from Android and Google themselves, because a lot of these things like the S-Translate and other things like that, Google has provided similar services alongside, or inside of Android for the longest now. Do you think Samsung, with all these new software features, trying to pull away from Android a little bit?
This is one of the silliest arguments. If people understand no, they're not trying to get away from Android, number one. They're using Android according to what the sort of pretty much the license to use Android is. Google says, hey, here's a code, here's a base code. Anything you create with that, you own it. So what Samsung is doing is what none of the other manufacturers are doing out there. They're creating their own software on top of the Android base code. So to me, I don't think they're trying to break away from Android. They're trying to make their own thing, because all that Google really cares about is that it's running Android and it has access to the Google Play Store to be able to get apps and things of that nature. They're not so worried about it, them using all the Androids, the Google-centric applications with it, because
I don't know because Google makes money from the advertising that you may see in some of these applications or things like that, and I think Google really is into those apps. You look how many apps they release for iOS and things like that. So I think Google's probably really worried about Samsung for basically maybe trying to the next Samsung Galaxy phone may not even look like an Android phone at all. It may just look like something totally different. I think Google may be a little bit worried about that.
I think what Google's more worried about is the fact that other manufacturers are not doing what Samsung's doing, and I think they're more worried about one person dominating the game, which is Samsung. Clearly, they're clearly dominating the game. But to me, that's not Samsung's fault. That's the fault of the HTCs, the LGs, the Motorola's, and the rest. Well, Motorola's owned by Google now, but prior to that, it's their fault for not putting out something compelling. And if you're not going to put out compelling, you're not going to develop the software, because that's the biggest thing. Why did Apple's iPhone be so dominant for so long? Software features were the key thing. Samsung caught onto that and said, well, people want software and features to work with it. It's not always just about the hardware. So if you can marry good hardware with good software, you're going to get a great combination. They figured it out with the S3. They're going to do that with the S4, and other manufacturers to follow suit so that Samsung doesn't have this sort of dominance here. The only player in the game I think that can do it is maybe Motorola, and that's really on the fact that they're owned by Google. But other than that, everybody's pretty much a second-tier brand in the Android market to Samsung.
All right, man. Well, thanks for the talk, man. Looks like we got a lot of good stuff out of here. Hope everybody who's watching this video learn a little bit about the S4. Just definitely, I want you to see what you guys think about our opinions about the Samsung Galaxy S4. Leave a comment down below where you think this thing is going to be good or bad. Are you looking forward to buying one? Let us know by leaving that comment down below. And do make sure you check out Bowman at bw1.com. Also here on YouTube as well. Check out his videos. And thanks for watching Soldiers Tech Battlefield, guys. I will catch you next episode. Peace out.